cab screaming into the radio, "The line stays open! The line stays open!" His body was never recovered. The official report blamed ice and human error. But survivors told a different story. They swore the train's headlamps turned green minutes before the crash, an impossible color for the era's bulbs. One woman claimed Elias's eyes glowed the same shade as he fought the controls. And in the twisted metal, investigators found the cars warped into spirals metal bent like taffy, defying physics. Maria slid a folder across the table. Inside, a 1,933 Kansas City Star clipping, yellowed and brittle. 27 dead in midnight express horror. A grainy photo showed the wreckage cars accordion folded, but in the background, a faint silhouette of an intact locomotive, black as coal, untouched by the crash. The caption made no mention of it. "That's not the train that derailed," Maria whispered. "That's the one that comes back." Jake couldn't let it go. The next night, he stayed late on purpose. He brought a digital recorder, a GoPro, and a thermos of coffee strong enough to wake the dead. At 12:55 a.m., the temperature plummeted. The lights on Platform 3 flickered in sequence, like a heartbeat. The rumble started low, building until the benches vibrated. The whistle screamed again, and the black train rolled in, same as before, but slower, deliberate. This time, Jake didn't run. He stood at the yellow safety line, GoPro rolling, and called out, "Elias Kane, what do you want? Is less than hay shown? Zero hash is greater than..." The doors opened wider. A figure stepped onto the platform, tall, in a conductor's uniform from the 30 seconds, cap pulled low. His face was wrong skin, translucent, eyes twin green lanterns. He raised a gloved hand, and Jake felt an icy grip on his shoulder, though the figure was 10 feet away. The whisper came from everywhere and nowhere. "Ride with us. The line stays open." Jake's GoPro caught 30 seconds of footage, the conductor's face dissolving into shadow, the train's interior stretching into an endless tunnel of green light, rows of passengers with glowing eyes turning to stare. Then the lens cracked spiderweb fractures spreading from the center, and the battery died. The train vanished as suddenly as it came, leaving only the smell of ozone and a single brass button on the platform engraved with ME 1933. Jake quit the next day. He packed his apartment in 48 hours and moved to Street Louis, took a warehouse job, swore off trains forever. But the ghost followed. His new clock radio turned on at 1 a.m., static whispering his name. His car's GPS once rerouted him to Platform 3, Union Station Mid-Drive. In 2024, a new janitor at Union Station found a 1,933 pocket watch under a bench on platform, 3 hands spinning backward, engraved EK. In 2025, a tourist's photo went viral. A black steam engine on the tracks, timestamped 1 a.m., but the platform empty in real time. Union Station still runs trains. Amtrak? Freight? The works. But Platform 3? It's different. The schedule board glitches at 12:59 a.m., flashing Midnight Express on time. Security cameras show static at 1 a.m. sharp. And every winter, on December 8th, the whistle echoes through the station, clear as day, even with no trains in sight. Locals say Elias Kane is still out there, bound by his vow, collecting passengers for a ride that never ends. Some claim the train isn't just a ghost, it's a door. A one-way ticket to wherever the Midnight Express was really headed that night in 1933. So, if you're ever at Union Station after midnight and hear that whistle, don't look down the tracks. Don't check the schedule board. And whatever you do, don't step on to Platform 3. Because some trains aren't taking you home, they're taking you somewhere else. And that's the strange, dark, and mysterious story of the ghost train at Union Station. If you've got your own brush with the rails, drop it in the comments. But remember, sometimes the whistle isn't calling the train. It's calling you. Story 4. All right, folks, buckle up for a story that's strange, dark, and mysterious. This one slithers out of the American Southwest along a ribbon of cracked asphalt that's seen more dreams die than come true. Like I always say, sometimes the truth, or at least the stories that refuse to fade with the sunset, hits harder than any desert heat. So if you're listening to this while cruising the open road, maybe keep your eyes on the rear view. Because today, I'm telling you the tale of the vanishing passenger at Route 66 bus stop. Picture this. It's the dog days of July 2023, and the Arizona stretch of old Route 66 is a furnace. The sun has baked the blacktop until it ripples like water, and the air shimmers with heat devils that dance across the horizon. Ghost towns huddle in the distance. Oatman, with its wild burrows and clapboard storefronts frozen in the 1,950 seconds, is the closest thing to civilization for miles. But out here, between the saguaro skeletons and the endless red rock, the Mother Road feels less like a highway and more like a vein pumping memories, regrets, and something else through the desert night. Our story centers on Lily Martinez, a 9-year-old freelance photographer from Tucson. Lily lived behind the lens, chasing the perfect shot of Americana in decay, rusted neon signs, abandoned motels, diners with "closed forever" painted in peeling letters. She'd built a following on Instagram with her Vanishing West series, and this trip was the big one, a solo cross-country haul for a glossy magazine spread. Lily was a skeptic to her core urban legends were just bad lighting and overactive imaginations. Ghosts don't pay the bills, she'd laugh. But even she couldn't deny the way the desert pressed in after dark, like the land itself was watching. July 14th, just past midnight. Lily's '99 Jeep Cherokee was running on fumes and caffeine, the AC long dead. She'd been pushing 12 hours straight from Flagstaff, chasing the golden hour that never quite materialized. Her eyes burned, her back ached, and the endless white lines were starting to blur. That's when she spotted it, a bus stop that shouldn't exist. No town, no gas station, no reason for public transit in 100 miles. Just a rusted metal sign on a leaning pole, the words "bus stop" barely legible, and a splintered wooden bench that looked older than the highway itself. The paint on the sign was chipped everywhere except one spot, the time. 1:15 a.m. glowed faintly as if freshly applied, though the rest was sun-bleached to bone. Lily pulled over, tires crunching on gravel. She killed the engine, stepped out into the oven-breath night, and stretched until her spine cracked. The silence was absolute, no crickets, no wind, just the low throb of her cooling radiator. She grabbed her Nikon from the passenger seat, planning a quick shot of the sign for the irony file. That's when she saw him. A man sat on the bench. He hadn't been there when she parked. Lily would swear on her camera. He wore a faded denim jacket, sleeves frayed, and a wide-brimmed Stetson pulled low over his face. His boots were scuffed rawhide, the kind you'd see in a John Wayne flick. He sat perfectly still, hands on his knees, staring down the empty road like he'd been waiting since the Eisenhower administration. Lily's skin prickled. "Hey," she called, voice cracking in the dry air. "You okay out here?" The man lifted his head. His face stayed in shadow, but his voice floated across the 10 feet between them, soft, almost melodic, with a faint drawl. "Waiting for the 1:15 bus, miss. We brank 24 and 5 to 2. Lily glanced at her phone, no service, but the clock read 12:58 a.m. "Buddy, nothing's running out here till morning, if ever," she said, forcing a laugh. He tilted his hat back, just enough for moonlight to catch a smile. "It's always on time for me." A chill cut through the 90-degree night. Lily raised her camera, more reflex than thought, and snapped a frame. The flash strobed white across the desert. When her vision cleared, the bench was empty. No footsteps in the dust. No heat shimmer. Just the sign swaying slightly, though there was no wind. Her stomach dropped. She checked the camera's screen and froze. The photo showed the man exactly as she'd seen him, but his eyes, they were pure white, no pupils, no irises, glowing like twin moons. And he was staring straight into the lens, smiling wider than physics allowed. Lily stumbled back to her Jeep, heart jackhammering. The key turned, but the engine coughed once, twice, then roared to life. As she peeled out, her radio, dead for hours, crackled awake. Static, then a voice, not music, not DJ chatter, but the man's drawl layered over itself. Stay for the bus, stay for the bus. The dash clock froze at 1:15. She floored it, tires screaming, until the stop vanished in her mirrors. 20 miles later, she rolled into a 24-hour Sinclair station on the edge of Kingman, hands shaking so bad she could barely pump gas. The clerk, Gus, an old-timer with a face like cracked leather and a name tag older than Lily, took one look at her and poured coffee without being asked. "Oatman, stop?" he grunted. Lily nodded, spilling the story. Gus's eyes narrowed. "That'd be Henry Cole," he said, voice low. "Been waiting since '54. He slid a faded Polaroid across the counter. A grainy shot of the same bench, same sign, same man denim jacket, hat, white eyes staring at the camera. "Took this in '89, Gus said. He was gone when the flash popped. Then he told her the crash. July 14th, 1954, exactly 69 years earlier. A Greyhound Cine Cruiser, packed with 38 souls, headed from L.A. to Chicago, hit black ice on a curve near the stop. The driver overcorrected, the bus rolled, and fire swallowed the wreckage before help arrived. Everyone died. But the manifest listed 39 passengers. The extra? Henry Cole, a drifter who'd hitched a ride in Barstow, no ID, no luggage, just a denim jacket and a promise to catch the next ride, wherever it goes. His body was never found in the charred remains. Survivors, nearby motorists who saw the crash, swore the bus's headlights flashed pure white seconds before it veered. Gus leaned in. Henry shows up every year on the anniversary, sits on that bench, asks for the 1:15. And if you talk to him, he tapped the Polaroid. He don't let go easy. Lily couldn't sleep. She holed up in a Kingman motel, but at 1:15 a.m. sharp, the room's ancient CRT TV flickered on static, then the man's face filling the screen, white eyes unblinking. The mirror fogged with a handprint too large to be human. Her Nikon, charging on the nightstand, chimed 47 new photos. She scrolled every shot from the last 24 hours, now had Henry in the frame, standing just behind her, smiling. She drove to the Mojave Museum at dawn, digging through microfiche and dusty files. A 1954 Arizona Republic headline. 39 TH passenger missing en route 66 Inferno. A survivor's statement. Henry had been muttering all night. The ride ain't over. The ride ain't over. A 1962 trucker's log donated by his widow picked up a hitchhiker near Oatman Stop. Denim jacket, no shadow. Vanished when I blinked. Found his ticket on the seat dated 1954. Lily contacted Clara Webb, a Route 66 historian who'd written 3 books on the highway's ghosts. They met at a diner in Seligman, Clara sliding a manila folder across the Formica. Inside, a 1954 police sketch of Henry, same jacket, same hat, but the artist's note. Eyes drawn from witness memory subject claims they were like headlights. A 1978 Navajo elder's oral history recorded on cassette. The stop sat on an ancient trail where walkers lured travelers into the spirit world. And a Polaroid from 1985 Clara's own, showing Henry offering a ticket that crumbled to ash in her hand. The disturbances escalated. Lily's GPS rerouted every destination to bus stop, 1:15 a.m. Her motel keycard demagnetized at 1:14, remagnetized at 1:16. One night, she woke to find her car keys arranged on the comforter in a perfect spiral. And every photo she took now carried a watermark in the corner. HC 115. July 14th, 2024, 1 year later. Lily returned. Not for the magazine. Not for proof. For answers. She parked at 1250 A, camera rolling on a tripod, voice recorder in her pocket. The desert was silent. Then the temperature plunged. The signs 1:15 a.m. began to glow, not reflect, glow like neon under blacklight. Henry materialized, flickering like bad film reel. His shadow didn't touch the ground. His voice came from everywhere. Seat saved, Lily. Ride with me. Headlights appeared on the horizon, pure white, no vehicle attached, just two beams floating above the asphalt. A low rumble built. Not an engine, but a heartbeat. The bench creaked as Henry stood, extending a hand. His fingers were too long, joints bending wrong. Lily's camera flashed on its own, click, click, click. The screen showed the bus now. A silver Greyhound, windows packed with passengers, all turning to stare, all with white eyes. Henry stepped closer. His face glitched, skin dissolving into static, revealing something underneath, not bone, not flesh, but light. The ride never ends, he whispered, breath cold as dry ice. Lily's recorder caught it all, then the lens cracked, spiderwebbing from the center. She ran. The Jeep started on the first try, and she floored it, dust plumes swallowing the stop. She never went back. But Henry did. In 2025, a German tourist's dash cam caught him sitting on the bench at 1:15 a.m., then gone in the next frame. A trucker found a denim scrap pinned under the sign embroidered HC in red thread that smelled of smoke. And every July 14th, the stop's dust arranges itself into footprints leading nowhere. Lily sold her camera, deleted her portfolio, moved to Seattle. But at 1:15 a.m., her smartwatch still vibrates. Bus stop, now boarding. Route 66 stretches on, endless and unforgiving. The stop waits under the stars, bench polished smooth by unseen hands. If you're driving alone and see a man in denim waving you down, keep the pedal down. Don't check the time. And whatever you do, don't stop. Because some passengers aren't waiting for the bus, they're waiting for you. And that's the strange, dark, and mysterious story of the vanishing passenger at Route 66 bus stop. If you've got your own Mother Road nightmare, drop it in the comments. But remember, sometimes the road doesn't take you where you're going. Sometimes it takes you where you belong. Story 5. All right, folks, brace yourselves for a story that'll make your skin crawl and keep you away from secluded lakeside homes forever. This one's about a place so drenched in dread, so steeped in horrors that cling to its walls, that it's become a whispered nightmare in a small Wisconsin town. On Lakeview Drive, there's a villa with a past so dark, it doesn't just haunt, it hungers. It's strange, it's terrifying, and it's deeply, bone-chillingly mysterious. Like I always say, sometimes the truth is weirder and far scarier than anything you could dream up. So, lock your doors, because I'm about to tell you the story of the haunted villa on Lakeview Drive. It was the winter of 2024 in the quiet town of Willow Lake, Wisconsin, where the villa on Lakeview Drive, a decaying Gothic mansion from the 1872, loomed over the frozen shore of Lake Winnebago. Ethan Caldwell, a 5-year-old true crime podcaster, rented the villa for a month, chasing rumors of its gruesome history for his next episode. The house was a wreck, peeling wallpaper, warped floorboards, and a stench of rot that no cleaning could banish. Locals warned Ethan to avoid it, whispering about the hungry house that eats its guests, but Ethan, a hardened skeptic, laughed it off as rural superstition. On January 9th, Ethan was recording in the villa's study at 3 a.m., the witching hour when the world feels wrong. The air was heavy, the lake outside silent under a crust of ice. Then he heard a wet, dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled across the floor above. His recorder picked up a low growl, not animal, but guttural, inhuman, followed by a whisper. "Ethan, feed us." The room's temperature plummeted, his breath clouding, and his laptop screen glitched, showing a live feed of the hallway, a figure, hunched and eyeless, clawing at the walls. Ethan grabbed a flashlight, heart hammering, and checked the upstairs hallway. It was empty, but the walls were slick with a black, oily substance that smelled of decay. Scratches marred the wood, forming words, "Stay forever." His phone, left in the study, began playing his podcast, except it wasn't his voice, but a chorus of screams chanting his name. The lights flickered, and in the mirror at the hall's end, he saw not his reflection, but a mass of writhing shapes, their mouths gaping, eyeless faces pressed against the glass. Panicked, Ethan called his friend Mia, a local bartender who'd tipped him off about the villa. She arrived, pale, and admitted the house was cursed, tied to a 1902 massacre. The villa's first owner, Dr. Elias Morrow, a surgeon obsessed with the occult, was rumored to have experimented on vagrants, draining their blood in the basement for rituals to bind the hungry ones. When townsfolk stormed the villa, they found 13 bodies, mutilated, and Elias gone, his journal describing a door in the walls that demanded sacrifice. The villa was sealed until the 1980 seconds when it reopened as a rental only for guests to vanish or flee, raving about eyes in the dark. Ethan dug into the town's archives. A 1902 newspaper reported the massacre, noting strange details. The bodies were drained, their faces frozen in screams, and the basement walls were carved with spirals and eyes. A 1950 seconds police report described a squatter in the villa found babbling about mouths in the floor before disappearing. A 2020 Reddit thread detailed a renter hearing growls and seeing shadows with no eyes, their camera capturing a figure that wasn't there. The horrors intensified. Ethan's bedroom door slammed shut at 3 a.m., locking him in, the knob burning hot to the touch. His mirror cracked, oozing the same black oil, which formed words, "Give us more. While of this work." Footprints, wet and bloody, appeared on the ceiling, pacing above his bed. One night, Mia visited and saw a hand gray, claw-like reach from under the floorboards, grabbing at her ankle before vanishing. Desperate, Ethan contacted a local historian, Dr. Helen Voss, who knew the villa's grim lore. She uncovered a 1902 letter from Elias's assistant claiming he'd opened a rift in the basement, summoning entities that fed on life. A 1920 surveyor's note described the villa's foundation as unnatural, with tunnels leading nowhere, lined with bones etched with spirals. Helen warned Ethan the house wasn't haunted, it was alive, feeding on those who stayed too long. On January 20th, Ethan set up cameras to confront it. At 3 a.m., the dragging sound returned, louder, shaking the walls. The basement door creaked open, revealing a staircase descending into pitch black, where a red glow pulsed. Ethan's camera caught a figure, tall, eyeless, its mouth a gaping maw crawling up the stairs, whispering, "You're ours." He ran, but his flashlight died, and the walls seemed to breathe, closing in. His final recording captured a scream his own, mixed with a chorus of growls, "Feed us." Ethan fled the villa, but the nightmare clung to him. His apartment's mirrors fogged at 3 a.m., showing eyeless faces. His dreams were filled with the villa's basement, a writhing mass of mouths calling his name. In 2025, a new tenant found a blood-stained recorder in the villa playing Ethan's voice saying, "I'm still here," as witchin' problem. Locals call it the Hungry House, and some say it's Elias's rift. Others, a demon tied to the land, feeding on souls. To this day, the villa on Lakeview Drive stands, its windows dark, waiting for guests. If you're there at 3 a.m. and hear dragging, don't go downstairs. Because some houses don't just haunt, they consume. Ethan wasn't just a skeptic, he'd laughed off haunted house stories on his podcast, but the villa's air felt alive, pressing against his skin like a predator, sizing him up. The house's windows seemed to watch, their glass warped, reflecting distorted faces even in daylight. Locals avoided Lakeview Drive, claiming the lake itself hummed at night, a low drone that made dogs howl. That January night, the dragging wasn't just a sound, it vibrated in Ethan's bones, like the house was chewing something alive. The growl wasn't just inhuman, it pulsed with hunger, and the whisper seemed to claw inside his skull, knowing his darkest fears. The laptop's feed showed the figure's limbs bending wrong, its eyeless face splitting into a smile too wide for a human jaw. The mirror shapes weren't just shadows, they writhed, their mouths snapping, as if trying to break through the glass. Mia's story was worse. She'd heard the growls as a teen, biking past the villa, and saw a face in the window eyeless, its mouth dripping black oil. A1900. And 2 police log noted the massacre's victims had no blood, their bodies arranged in a spiral in the basement. The journal's last page, in Elias's hand, read, "The hunger is eternal. It demands." Ethan's research dug up nightmares. A 1930 tenant's diary described waking to hands pulling their sheets, whispering, "More." A 1980 squatter vanished, leaving claw marks on the basement door too deep for human nails. Helen's findings tied the villa to a 19th century cult, worshipping a devourer under the lake fed by Elias's rituals. The terrors grew unbearable. Ethan's bed shook at 3 a.m., as if something beneath clawed upward. The black oil seeped from light fixtures, pooling into shapes that crawled toward him. A neighbor heard screams from the villa, but police found it empty except for bloody footprints circling the basement. That final night, the basement's glow wasn't just red, it pulsed like a heartbeat, and the air smelled of blood and ash. The figure wasn't alone. Dozens of eyeless shapes loomed behind it, their mouths chanting in unison. Ethan's camera showed the staircase descending endlessly, walls lined with faces frozen in screams. After Ethan fled, the villa's grip tightened. His podcast uploaded episodes he didn't record, filled with growls and his own voice begging, "Let me go." A 2025 hiker found bones near the lake, etched with spirals smelling of rot. The villa stands, its doors unlocked, waiting. If you hear dragging at 3 a.m., run. Because the villa doesn't just want you, it's starving. Story 6. All right, folks, hold on tight for a story that'll make you steer clear of forgotten backroads and abandoned towns. This one's about a place so cloaked in dread, so tangled in whispers of the lost, that it's become a chilling legend in the deep woods of Maine. In the heart of Hollow Pines, a village erased from maps, something lingers in the shadows, waiting for those who wander too close. It's strange, it's terrifying, and it's deeply mysterious. Like I always say, sometimes the truth is weirder and far scarier than anything you could dream up. So, keep your flashlight handy because I'm about to tell you the story of the forgotten village of Hollow Pines. It was the fall of 2023 in the dense forests of northern Maine, where the village of Hollow Pines, abandoned since the 1942, lay hidden off a forgotten logging road. Sarah Ellis, a 27-year-old urban explorer and vlogger, heard rumors of the village from an online forum and set out to film its ruins for her channel. The path to Hollow Pines was overgrown, the air thick with pine and decay, and the few locals in nearby Millinocket warned her to stay away, muttering about a place that keeps what it takes. Sarah, a thrill seeker who'd explored dozens of abandoned sites, brushed it off as small-town folklore. On October 12th, Sarah reached Hollow Pines at dusk, her camera rolling. The village was a skeleton of rotting cabins, a collapsed church, and a sagging mill, all swallowed by moss and vines. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the creak of warped wood. As she filmed the church, her camera glitched, capturing a faint hum like voices chanting beneath the ground. Then she saw a figure, cloaked in tattered rags, standing in the mill's doorway, its face hidden but its eyes glowing faintly red. Her flashlight flickered, and a whisper hissed through the trees. "Sarah, join us. What's some pretty percent one for liferin?" Heart racing, Sarah checked her footage, which showed the figure moving closer, though she hadn't seen it approach. The air turned icy, and her compass spun wildly, pointing nowhere. In the church, she found scratches on the altar names, dozens of them, including hers, carved fresh in the wood. Her phone's screen cracked, displaying a photo she didn't take, a circle of figures, eyeless, holding hands around her shadow. Terrified, Sarah called her friend Nate, a fellow explorer back in Portland, who drove to Millinocket to meet her. At a diner, she told a local Amos, an old logger with haunted eyes. He went still, then spoke of a 1,942 fire that wiped out Hollow Pines, killing most of its 60 residents. The village was a logging outpost, but rumors swirled of a cult led by a preacher, Amos Kane, who worshipped the voice in the pines. Survivors claimed the fire wasn't natural flames moved like they were alive, sparing the church but burning names into its altar. Sarah dug into the archives at Millinocket's library. A 1,942 newspaper clipping described the fire, noting oddities. Bodies were found charred, but arranged in a circle, and Kane's body was missing. A 1,960 seconds hiker's journal found in the library mentioned seeing figures in Hollow Pines chanting at dusk, vanishing when approached. A 2017 Reddit post detailed a camper hearing their name whispered in the village, their tent slashed with the word "stay." The horrors grew worse. Sarah's camera kept recording after she turned it off, capturing footsteps circling her tent at night. The villages, dry for decades, bubbled with black water that smelled of ash. Nate, joining her for a second trip, saw shadows in the mill, their limbs too long, crawling on walls like spiders. One night, Sarah's sleeping bag was dragged toward the church while she slept, stopping only when she screamed. Desperate, Sarah contacted a local historian, Dr. Clara Holt, who knew Hollow Pines' dark past. Holt found a 1,942 letter from a survivor claiming Kane's cult opened a gate in the church, summoning something that fed on the living. A 1,920-second surveyor's map showed the village built over an ancient burial mound marked with warnings of a pine spirit. Holt warned Sarah the village wasn't abandoned, it was claimed, binding souls to its soil. On October 20th, Sarah returned alone, camera rolling, determined to expose the truth. At midnight, the chanting grew louder, shaking the ground. The church doors swung open, revealing a red glow inside, where figures eyeless, their mouths gaping, swayed in a circle. Her camera caught a voice, not hers, screaming, "You're ours." The air thickened, and hands cold, gray, claw-like, grabbed her ankles from the dirt. Her last footage showed her running, the figures chasing, their red eyes burning through the dark. Sarah vanished that night. Nate found her camera in the church, its battery dead, but the footage intact, showing her face, pale, mouthing, "I'm still here." Her backpack was found in the well, soaked in black oil. In 2025, a hiker reported seeing Sarah's figure in Hollow Pines, standing in the mill, her eyes red, whispering names. Locals call it the Taken Village, and some say it's Kane's cult, others a spirit that never sleeps. To this day, Hollow Pines lies hidden, its ruins waiting in the pines. If you're there at midnight and hear chanting, don't follow it. Because some villages don't just die, they claim you forever. Sarah wasn't just a thrill seeker, she'd laughed off ghost stories on her vlog, but Hollow Pines felt alive, the trees seeming to lean closer, watching her every move. The village's air was wrong, thick with a sweet rot that clung to her skin. Locals said animals avoided the area, and even birds wouldn't fly over the church. That October night, the hum wasn't just voices, it pulsed like a heartbeat, shaking dirt from the church's rafters. The figure in the mill didn't just stand its head twisted, unnaturally slow, its red eyes boring into Sarah's soul. The whisper didn't just say her name, it knew her fears, pausing when she thought of running. Her camera's photo showed not one figure, but dozens, their eyeless faces pressed against the lens, mouths stretched in silent screams. Amos's story was darker. As a boy, he'd seen the figures himself, their bodies flickering like bad film, leaving claw marks on his bike. A 1,942 survivor's diary hidden in the library described Cain preaching about a feast for the pines, his eyes glowing red before the fire. The altar's names weren't just carved, they bled, oozing black oil that smelled of death. Sarah's research uncovered terrors is less than #0. 5# is greater than a 1,950 seconds Rangers log noted footprints in hollow pines, leading to the church but never out. A 1,980 seconds camper vanished, their tent found shredded with "Join US" scratched into nearby trees. Holt's findings tied the village to a 17th century legend of a pine wraith, a spirit that devoured souls, lured by Cain's rituals. The nightmares escalated. Sarah's tent was slashed nightly, the cuts forming spirals. The church's windows glowed red at midnight, showing shadows that danced without light. Nate's skin burned where the shadows touched him, leaving marks like teeth. One night, Sarah woke to her own voice, whispering from the well, begging her to come down. That final night, the church wasn't just glowing, it pulsed, the walls bending like flesh. The figures didn't just sway, they crawled, their limbs snapping, bodies merging into a writhing mass. Sarah's footage showed hands bursting from the ground, their fingers long and gray, pulling at her shadow as she screamed. After Sarah vanished, the village's grip tightened. Nate's dreams showed Sarah in the church, her face eyeless, chanting his name. A 2025 explorer found a bone in the well, carved with Sarah's initials, still wet with oil. A drone over hollow pines caught a shadow circle, moving under the trees, whispering, "Hollow Pines waits, it's pines hiding secrets." If you hear chanting at midnight, run. Because some villages don't let you leave, they keep you forever. Story 7. All right, folks, grab your keys, check the deadbolt twice, and maybe sleep with the lights on tonight. Because this one isn't about a haunted house in the woods, it's about a haunted apartment in the middle of Brooklyn, where the walls have ears, the mirrors have teeth, and the rent is paid in something far worse than money. Locals on Willow Street don't talk about apartment 4B. They step around it, like avoiding a crack that goes straight to hell. So pull the blinds, mute your phone, and keep one eye on the closet, because tonight I'm telling you what really moved into the brownstone with Mia Torres. July 2024, Brooklyn, New York. Willow Street, Cobble Hill, tree-lined, gas lamps, million-dollar townhouses, the whole postcard. Except for number 47, a 4-story brownstone built in 1895 by a shipping magnate named Elias Vell. The facade is tired. Sandstone gone gray, iron railings flaking rust like dried blood, gargoyles over the stoop that look like they're chewing on something. Inside, the stairwell smells of boiled cabbage and despair. The mailboxes are stuffed with flyers no one reads. And on the 4th floor, behind a door painted the color of nicotine, sits apartment 4B, vacant for 8 months, rent slashed to $1,900, a steal in a neighborhood where closets go for $2,000. Mia Torres, 29, graphic designer, Queens native, signed the lease sight unseen. She'd been couch surfing after a breakup, needed walls that weren't her mom's. Harold Greaves, the landlord, met her on the stoop with a manila envelope and the jittery energy of a man late on alimony. Keys, lease, one rule, The bedroom closet stays locked, belonged to the previous tenant. Sentimental value. Mia laughed, city girl. Seen every scam. She signed. Harold's hand trembled when he took the pen back. July 11th. Move-in day. The apartment was a time capsule. Crown molding yellowed with nicotine, radiator that clanked like a dying robot, hardwood floors scarred with cigarette burns, and something that looked suspiciously like claw marks. A single window faced an air shaft so narrow you could high-five the neighbor's cat. The bedroom closet, oak, 6-panel, brass knob, had a padlock the size of a hockey puck. Mia dumped her boxes, ordered Thai, and cracked a beer. At 11:58 p.m., the lights flickered. Not a brownout flicker, deliberate. On, off, like breathing. July 12th, 2:03 a.m. Mia was at her desk, Wacom tablet glowing, sketching logos for a crypto startup that would probably rug pull by Christmas. The hum started low, subwoofer deep, vibrating in her molars. Her smart speaker unplugged, crackled to life. Alexa's voice, but wrong, layered with something wet. Me. You're not alone. The tablet screen glitched, pixels bleeding into a live feed of the bedroom. The closet door was open. Shouldn't be, couldn't be. But there it was, yawning black, and in the doorway stood a shape human height but folded wrong, shoulders hunched to knees, head cocked at an angle that would snap a spine. No face, just a smooth oval of skin where features should be, glistening like whetstone. Mia's chair rolled back, hit the wall. The temperature tanked summer night to meat locker in seconds. Her breath fogged. The front door rattled in its frame, chain lock dancing like something inside the apartment was trying to get out. She grabbed her phone, ran to the bedroom. The closet was closed, padlock intact. But the mirror over the dresser showed the open door behind her reflection. The faceless thing stepping into the room, arms elongating, fingers dragging across the floorboards with a sound like chalk on wet glass. She screamed, bolted, slammed the bedroom door. In the living room, her phone, left on the desk, recorded audio she never heard. Rhythmic scratching from inside the closet walls, slow and deliberate, spelling in Morse she'd later translate, Staywythme. The windows fogged from the inside, handprints blooming 5 fingers, but too long, joints bending backward, smearing down the glass like slug trails. Her keys on the kitchen counter were twisted into a perfect spiral, metal still warm, smelling of ozone. She didn't sleep. At dawn, she called Leo Park, best friend since SVA, barista at Devotion, with a side hustle debunking TikTok hauntings. They met at the 24-hour diner on Court Street, fluorescent lights buzzing like angry hornets. Mia played the audio. Leo's face went the color of oat milk. "That's not EVP," he said. "That's inside the file." The waveform showed a second track layered beneath the scratching whispers, dozens, saying her full name, middle included, in voices that weren't human. Mrs. Callahan lived in 3A, 81 years old, walker, oxygen tank, memory like a steel trap. She'd watched tenants come and go from 4B since Nixon. "Agnesville," she rasped, lighting a Virginia Slim with a trembling Bic. 1,924. Lived up there alone. Never left the apartment after dark. Ordered groceries through the dumbwaiter. One morning, the milkman found the door open, bottles untouched. Agnes? Gone. Closet padlocked from the inside. Cops cut it open. Walls carved, floor-to-ceiling spirals, eyes, words in a language looked like bugs crawling. Blood was still wet. Mia hit the Brooklyn Historical Society at noon, microfiche room smelling of dust and desperation. 1,924 police report. Missing Agnesville, 34. Spinster. No signs of struggle. Closet walls inscribed with occult symbols. Substance on walls tested. Human blood, type O negative. Matches missing woman. A 1,925 follow-up. New tenant, Mr. Kowalski, lasted 6 days. Found catatonic in the hallway, babbling about the man with no face in the mirror, committed to Creedmoor. Died 1,927. Cause exsanguination. Source unknown. 1962. A jazz musician named Ray Delgado moved in, chasing cheap rent and inspiration. Recorded an album in 4B Closet Blues. Never released. Master tapes vanished with him. Only surviving track leaked online 2018, 3 minutes of saxophone, then Ray screaming, "It's wearing my face!" followed by wet tearing sounds. 1987. College kids on a dare. One filmed the closet with a Super 8. Film developed a week later, frames showed the padlock opening itself, a hand reaching out, palm up, fingers melting into the lens. The kid who held the camera? Never found. His roommates still get birthday texts from his number, "Wish you were here." Mia needed answers. She cold-called Dr. Samuel Klein, a cult historian, author of Thresholds, Doors That Should Stay Closed. He agreed to meet at a Park Slope cafe, brought a leather satchel older than Mia. Inside, Agnes Vell's journal, recovered from a estate sale in 1998. Entries in fountain pen, ink faded to rust. The 12th of March, 1924. The closet breathes when I sleep. It knows my dreams. April 3. Cut my palm, let it drink. The walls purred. May 1. It has no name. It wears the shape of absence. I am becoming the door. Last page, dated October 31. Tonight, I open it all the way. The building is hungry. We will feed it together. Klein flipped to a blueprint. The brownstone's foundation sat atop a forgotten 18th century crypt, Knights Templar offshoot, rumored to have practiced inversio anima, binding souls to architecture. The closet in 4B aligned exactly with the crypt's altar stone. The lock isn't to keep people out, Klein said. It's to keep it in. But every tenant who bleeds in that room weakens the seal. July 18th. Mia and Leo returned with a plan. Document, debunk, delete the listing. They set up in the bedroom 4 cameras, motion sensors, a UV light to catch handprints, a lock picker for the closet in case of emergency. At 1:57 a.m., the power cut, not a flicker, gone. Emergency lights in the hall died too. The apartment plunged into black, so complete it had weight. Then the hum, deeper now, rattling Mia's ribcage. Leo's phone flashlight caught the closet door padlock gone. Door ajar 2 inches, red light pulsing from within like a dying star. The motion sensor screamed. Camera 3, aimed at the closet, showed the gap widening on its own. Something stepped out. Not walked, unfolded. 7 feet tall, limbs jointed wrong, skin the color of wet cement. Where a face should be. A hole ringed with teeth that weren't teeth mirror shards, reflecting Mia's terrified eyes back at her, multiplied 100-fold. It moved without sound, but the floorboards screamed under it, wood splintering upward like teeth. Leo grabbed Mia's arm. Run! They bolted for the front door. Chain lock was locked. From the inside, key wouldn't turn metal, fuse solid. Behind them, the bedroom mirror cracked in a perfect spiral. The reflection stepped out of the glass, eyeless, mouths sewn shut with black thread, reaching. The apartment walls bulged inward, plaster cracking to reveal brick that bled slow, thick, black. Mia remembered the fire escape. Window stuck. Leo kicked it. Glass exploded outward. They climbed down, barefoot, shards slicing skin. On the street, sirens someone had called 911. Cops arrived to an empty apartment, door unlocked from the outside now. Closet sealed, padlock back, shiny and new. Cameras? Wiped. But the SD card in Mia's pocket missed in the chaos, held 43 seconds of footage. It showed the thing standing in the living room, head tilted, then leaning into the lens until the screen filled with its tooth-ringed void. Last frame. Mia's face, but the eyes were mirror shards, blinking out of sync. Mia crashed at Leo's. 2 nights later, 2:03 a.m., his Keurig turned on by itself. Coffee brewed black, thick, smelling of earth. Cup on the counter spelled in grounds, M-I-N-E. Leo's mirror fogged. Writing appeared. Leonext. He moved to his sister's in Jersey the next day. Hasn't been back to Brooklyn since. August 2024. New tenant in 4B. A TikTok couple, 1.2 million followers, planning a haunted Airbnb series. Their intro video posted August 15th. Day 1 inch, the cursed closet apartment. Smash like if we survive. Last story, August 16th, 2:03 a.m., live from the bedroom. The girl whispers, "Guys, the lock just fell off." Camera pans to the closet open, red glow strobing. The guy laughs nervously, then screaming, "Feed cuts! Account deleted by user request 20 minutes later." 2025. The brownstone is condemned structural damage, vermin infestation. Demolition delayed indefinitely. Workers refused to enter after the third one vanished mid-shift. His hard hat was found in 4B. Brim chewed to splinters, inside lined with teeth marks that match human dental records, but no match in any database. Drones sent in show the closet door missing now, a hole in the wall leading to a staircase that descends below the foundation, steps carved from mirror glass, reflecting nothing. Mia lives in Pittsburgh now, under her mother's maiden name. She hasn't looked in a mirror in 6 months, uses a webcam for Zoom calls, keeps it covered when off. At 2:03 a.m., her phone buzzes with texts from unknown numbers. Photos of her sleeping, taken from inside her locked bedroom. Last week, a package arrived. No return address. Inside, the padlock from 4B, open. Chain links fused into the shape of her initials. Harold the landlord, found dead in his office, throat cut ear to ear, but no blood at the scene. On his desk, a lease for 4B signed in fresh ink, tenant name, The Unseen. So here's the thing. The brownstone isn't haunted, it's tenanted. The closet isn't a door, it's a mouth. And it's got a waiting list. If you're ever on Willow Street and you see a for rent sign with no phone number, just a key taped to it, keep walking. Don't check the mirror. Don't listen at 2:03 a.m. And whatever you do, don't sign the lease. Because some apartments don't come with ghosts. They come with a roommate, and it's been there since the bricks were laid. Story 8. All right, folks, if you're the kind of person who likes to hang out in empty malls after closing, you might want to rethink that. Because what I'm about to tell you happened in a place that should have just been a boring, half-dead shopping center, but instead, it became something straight out of your worst nightmare. This is the story of Riverwalk Mall in Marion, Ohio, and the lights that don't just flicker. They watch. They wait. And sometimes, they take. Like I always say, sometimes the truth is way weirder and way scarier than anything you could make up. So grab something to hold on to, because we're going in. It all started in the winter of 2024. Riverwalk Mall was built back in the 82nds, one of those big, shiny indoor palaces that used to be packed with families, teenagers, and that unmistakable smell of pretzels and new sneakers. But by 2024, it was a ghost of itself. Half the stores were shuttered, the fountain in the food court hadn't worked in years, and the neon signs out front buzzed like dying insects. The place was so quiet at night, you could hear the escalators creak even when they weren't moving. And the lights, those long rows of fluorescent tubes, they never quite stayed steady. They'd flicker, dim, then surge back to life, like they were breathing. That's where Lucas Hayes comes in. Lucas was 28, practical guy, former college baseball player who blew out his knee senior year and ended up with a degree he couldn't use and a mountain of student debt. So he took the night security gig at Riverwalk, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., walking those empty corridors with nothing but a flashlight, a radio, and a thermos of terrible coffee. His coworkers, mostly older guys who'd been there forever, kept dropping these weird warnings. Don't look at the lights too long, kid. If they start pulsing, get out of that wing. The arcade's the worst. Whatever you do, don't go in there alone after 1 a.m. Lucas laughed it off. Faulty wiring, bad ballasts, maybe some bored janitor pranking the new guy. He'd seen the viral videos, the haunted mall clickbait, and he wasn't about to fall for that nonsense. But the mall had other plans. December 15th, 2024. 1:03 a.m., Lucas is doing his rounds on the second floor, passing the darkened Sunglass Hut, the abandoned Spencer's Gifts with its dusty lava lamps, when the lights start doing something wrong. Not just flickering, but strobing. Like a club, but colder, sharper. The shadows jump across the floor in jagged slashes, and Lucas feels the hair on his arms stand up. His radio crackles, but it's not his supervisor's voice. It's his name. Lucas? A whisper, dry, like wind through dead leaves. Stay. He stops dead in front of the old arcade fun zone the sign used to say, but half the letters are burnt out, so it just reads Foo Zone. The gates are down, padlocked, but through the metal grate, he sees movement. Not a person, not exactly. Something tall, thin, its body made of static, like TV snow given shape. No face, just a head that tilts slowly toward him. Lucas's flashlight dims, the beam shrinking like it's being sucked into the dark. And then his phone buzzes in his pocket. He pulls it out, and the camera app is open. Recording. On the screen, there's a face. Not human. Made of light, flickering, with two black voids where eyes should be staring right at him. The mouth opens, but no sound comes out. Just the word forming in the static. See. Lucas backs away, his boots squeaking on the tile, and that's when he feels it. The floor, vibrating. Not an earthquake, something under the tiles, pulsing. He looks down, and the grout between the squares is cracking. Black liquid seeps up, thick, oily, smelling like burnt plastic and copper. It spreads, slow, deliberate, forming letters right at his feet. See us? His walkie-talkie explodes with voices. Not one, dozens. Children laughing, women screaming, men growling, all saying his name in overlapping waves. The mall's PA system, which hasn't worked in years, suddenly hums to life. A low chant. Guttural. Ancient. Echoing through every corridor. Lucas runs. Past the pretzel stand, past the darkened kiosk selling phone cases, down the escalator that hasn't moved in a decade. He doesn't stop until he's outside, gasping in the freezing air, the parking lot lights buzzing overhead like angry hornets. He calls Tara. Tara's another guard, been there 2 years, tough as nails, doesn't scare easy. She meets him at the 24-hour diner on the edge of town, the one with the flickering open sign that never quite turns off. Lucas is shaking, shows her the phone video. The face, the word, the static figure that wasn't there when he looked with his own eyes. Tara's quiet for a long time. Then she says, "You need to talk to Earl." Earl's the janitor. Been mopping these floors since 1986. He's sitting in the corner booth, nursing a coffee that's more cream than coffee, hands like sandpaper from decades of bleach and floor wax. When Lucas shows him the video, Earl doesn't flinch. Just nods, slow, like he's been waiting for this. 1987, he says. December 23rd. Fire in the basement arcade. Electrical fire, they said. But it wasn't. Earl leans in, voice low, like the walls might be listening. 12 people died that night. Shoppers, kids, and Victor Klein. Victor was maintenance, obsessed with the wiring. Kept saying the mall was alive, that the electricity wasn't just power, it was a doorway. He'd work alone down there, rewiring, soldering, whispering to the cables like they could whisper back. Night of the fire, witnesses said the lights didn't just spark, they screamed. When they found the bodies, they weren't burned. They were fused. Skin melted into the arcade machines, eyes wide open, mouths stretched like they were still screaming, but the screams were coming from the speakers. Victor, they never found all of him. Just his hand, still clutching a live wire, fingers black, but the wire was glowing. Like it was drinking him. Lucas doesn't sleep that night. He's at the library at 9 a.m., digging through microfilm, old newspapers, police reports. The fire made page 1, but the details, they got buried. One article mentioned unidentified vocalizations from the PA system during the blaze. Another, a paramedic statement about the victims' faces being etched into the circuit boards, like photographs burned into metal. A 1,992 security log, a guard quitting after his flashlight exploded in his hand, leaving burns in the shape of eyes. A 2005 message board post, a teenager claiming the photo booth in the arcade printed a picture of him, but with no eyes, and the timestamp was 3 hours in the future. The mall doesn't let go easy. Lucas goes back the next night, because rents do. Because he's not a quitter. But now, he's watching the lights. And they're watching him. Every night at 1 a.m., his flashlight dies. Not the battery, the bulb melts. Glass dripping like wax, black oil pooling inside the lens. The escalators start moving, backward, grinding, even though the power's off. He finds his reflection in the glass storefronts, but it's wrong. The reflection blinks a half second after he does. Smiles when he doesn't. One night, he sees Tara's reflection, but Tara's not there. Her reflection mouths his name, then reaches out, fingers pressing against the inside of the glass. He starts recording everything. Body cam, phone, even an old GoPro strapped to his chest. The footage? It's not normal. Timestamps jump. Audio captures whispers that aren't in the room. One clip, he's walking past the arcade and the gate is open. It shouldn't be. Inside, the machines are on. Pac-Man, Galaga, the basketball game, all glowing, but the screens aren't games. They're faces. Dozens of them, flickering, mouths moving in sync. Feed us! They chant, voices coming from the speakers, from the walls, from inside his skull. Tara quits after that. Shows up at Lucas's apartment at 3 a.m., eyes bloodshot, skin blistered in perfect circles where the lights touched her. "It wore your face," she whispers. "In the arcade, it looked like you, but the eyes, they were bulbs. Glowing." And it said, "Come play." Lucas goes to the source. Dr. Miriam Cole, local historian, teaches at the community college, specializes in unexplained phenomena in Midwestern architecture. She meets him in the library basement, surrounded by boxes of yellowed documents. "The mall's built on a cemetery," she says without preamble. "Not on the plans, but the survey from 1978, it's there. Unmarked graves, 19th century. A cult, they called themselves the Luminari. Believed light was the path to ascension, that electricity could bridge the living and the dead. They'd bury their leaders with copper coils, glass orbs, waiting for the great illumination." Cole pulls out a map. The mall's foundation overlaid on the cemetery plot. The arcade, dead center over the mass grave, the main electrical room, built into what used to be the cult's chapel. "Victor Klein," she continues. "His grandfather was a Luminari. Family legend says Victor was trying to finish the ritual using the mall's grid as a conduit. The fire, it wasn't an accident. It was the awakening." December 22nd, Lucas's last night. He brings everything: 4 cameras, EMF detectors, a UV light, even a crucifix his mom mailed him after he told her he was having weird dreams. He sets up in the arcade, gates forced open, the air inside thick like breathing syrup. 12:58 a.m. The machines hum to life on their own. Screens flicker, showing the fire. 1,987. People running, mouths open in silent screams. 1 a.m. The lights go berserk. Strobing so fast the air vibrates, a sound like 1,000 voices screaming through a broken radio. The cameras catch it. First, sparks from the ceiling. Then, forms. Human-shaped, but wrong. Bodies made of light and shadow. Limbs stretching, splitting into wires that crawl along the floor. One steps out of the Pac-Man screen, head tilting, no face, just a bulb where the mouth should be, glowing white hot. It reaches for Lucas, fingers sparking, and where it touches his arm, the skin blisters instantly, circuits burning into his flesh like a brand. The floor splits. Tiles shattering, black oil gushing up, forming hands, dozens of them, grabbing his ankles, his wrists, pulling. The PA system screams, not words, just raw sound, pain given voice. Lucas fights, swings the UV light, and for a second, the figures recoil. Their forms glitch, flicker, like bad reception. He runs, cameras still recording, one strapped to his chest, showing the arcade behind him, the machines melting, screens bleeding, faces pressing against the glass from inside. He makes it to the parking lot, collapses, the mall's lights pulsing behind him like a heartbeat. But it's not over. That night, his apartment lights flicker at 1 a.m. His TV turns on, static, his face in the snow, screaming. His car, parked outside, headlights, strobe, forming eyes in the beams. He tries to leave town, but every road loops back to the mall. Is less than #0. 7 hash is greater than GPS glitches, street signs flicker, leading him in circles. January 2025. A new guard finds Lucas's GoPro in the arcade, still recording, battery impossible dead for weeks. The footage? It's him. Running. Screaming. But behind him, the lights aren't lights anymore. They're mouths. Hundreds of them, opening and closing, chanting in static. The final frame, Lucas's face, pressed against the camera lens from the inside. Eyes black, mouth open. But the sound, it's the mall's PA, whispering, "Stay forever." Riverwalk Mall is still open. Barely. A few stores, a dollar store, a vape shop, but at night, it's empty. The lights still flicker. Workers say the arcade gates open on their own. That sometimes at 1 a.m., you can hear the machines playing, even though they've been unplugged for years. And if you look close, in the reflection of the darkened screens, you might see a face that isn't yours. Lucas was never found. His apartment cleared out, like he was never there. But his student loans? Still being paid every month on the 15th from an account labeled RWM Security. So if you're ever in Marion, Ohio, and you see Riverwalk Mall with its buzzing sign and cracked pavement, keep driving. Because some places, they don't just close at 9 p.m. Some places never let you leave. And if you're inside after hours and the lights start to strobe, don't look up. Don't look at the reflections. And whatever you do, don't answer. When they say your name, because the lights, they're always hungry. And tonight, they might be hungry for you. Story 9. All right, folks, brace yourselves for a story that'll make you question what the government really knows and hides from us This one's about a classified file so explosive, so downright terrifying, that the FBI allegedly went to extreme lengths to bury it deep in the shadows. In the annals of American intelligence, whispers of a document detailing events too bizarre for public eyes have circulated for decades. It's strange, it's dark, and it's deeply mysterious. Like I always say, sometimes the truth is weirder than anything you could dream up. So, pull up a chair because I'm about to tell you the story of the file the FBI tried to erase. It all traces back to the late 1940s in the dusty archives of the FBI's Washington headquarters, where Agent Harlan Reeves, a no-nonsense investigator fresh from World War II, was assigned to a routine case. Reeves was tasked with reviewing declassified wartime documents for potential national security threats. Amid stacks of mundane reports on espionage and sabotage, he stumbled upon a sealed folder marked Project Echo, a thick dossier stamped with Eyes Only, and dated 1947. The file wasn't on any official index. It had been slipped into a misfiled box as if someone wanted it forgotten. Curious, Reeves cracked it open in a secure vault. What he found chilled him. Eyewitness accounts from Roswell, New Mexico, but not the weather balloon story the public knew. The file detailed a crash-landed craft, not human tech, with bodies recovered that were small, gray, with oversized heads and no visible orifices. Attached were photos, charred debris with strange hieroglyphs, autopsies showing non-terrestrial physiology, and memos from high-level officials debating cover-ups. One memo, signed by J. Edgar Hoover himself, ordered, "Erase all traces. This never happened." Reeves, skeptical but shaken, photocopied key pages before resealing the file. Days later, his office was ransacked, superiors questioned his overzealousness, and he was transferred to a dead-end post in Alaska. Reeves kept quiet for years, but in the 1970 seconds, as FOIA requests flooded the FBI, he anonymously leaked excerpts to a journalist, Walter Klein. Klein published a bombshell article in an obscure newsletter, claiming Project Echo proved extraterrestrial contact and a massive conspiracy. The backlash was swift. Klein's home was burgled, his notes stolen, and he was labeled a crank. The FBI denied the file's existence, calling it a hoax, but whistleblowers emerged. A retired agent swore he'd seen the bodies in a secure facility, and a Roswell coroner described non-human remains shipped to D.C. In 1980, during a congressional hearing on UFOs, questions about Project Echo were shut down, with officials citing national security. Here's where it gets darker. Leaked pages mentioned echo effects, witnesses hearing voices post-crash describing visitations from the entities, and tech anomalies like malfunctioning radios broadcasting alien languages. One report detailed a containment breach in 1952 where a survivor claimed the beings communicated telepathically, warning of an impending harvest. Reeves, before his mysterious death in 1985, ruled a heart attack, but rumored suicide, left a note. "They're watching. The file is the key." In the digital age, hackers claim to access redacted FBI servers, finding digital ghosts of Project Echo corrupted files with symbols matching Roswell debris. A 2010 seconds WikiLeaks dump included fragments, but they vanished hours later. Conspiracy circles point to Majestic 1-2, a supposed shadow group erasing evidence, while skeptics say it's disinformation to distract from real threats. To this day, Project Echo remains erased. No official file exists in FBI archives. But if you dig too deep into UFO lore and start hearing whispers on your radio, stop. Because some files aren't just hidden, they're protected by things that don't want to be found. And that's the story of the file the FBI tried to erase. Strange, dark, and mysterious, just like I promised. Harlan Reeves wasn't just any agent, he'd interrogated Nazis on occult projects, making him primed for the unbelievable. The file's photos weren't grainy fakes. They showed precise engineering, metals lighter than aluminum, yet indestructible. Autopsy notes described beings with fluid-like blood that defied biology, and one memo warned of psychic residue causing hallucinations in handlers. Reeves' leak wasn't impulsive. He'd confided in a trusted colleague who later vanished during a routine flight. Klein's article sparked FOIA frenzy, but responses were redacted black. The 1952 breach? Witnesses reported lights in the sky over D.C., and President Truman allegedly ordered a full purge. Reeves' death came after he met with UFO researchers, leaving behind a microfilm hidden in a library book. Hackers in the 2000s found server logs of deleted echo files, timestamps matching high-profile UFO sightings. A 2020 seconds declassification tease vanished from the National Archives website overnight. Theories tie it to MKUltra mind control or reverse-engineered tech powering modern drones. The file's legacy? Anomalous events for those who seek it, radios picking up unknown signals, shadows in photos. If you're researching Roswell and your devices glitch, unplug. Because some secrets erase more than paper, they take you with them. Shadows in the old high school gym. All right, folks, get ready for a story that'll make you think twice about lingering in an empty gym after hours. This one's about a place so steeped in strange happenings, so shadowed by things that shouldn't be there, that it's become the stuff of legend in a small Texas town. In an old high school with a past no one likes to talk about, something lingers in the gym that's not just the echo of sneakers on hardwood. It's strange, it's dark, and it's deeply mysterious. Like I always say, sometimes the truth is weirder than anything you could dream up. So, grab a seat, preferably not in the bleachers, and let's dive into Shadows in the Old High School Gym. It was the spring of 2019, in the small town of Lockhart, Texas, where Lockhart High School, a weathered brick building from the 1932nd, stood as the heart of the community. Mia Torres, a 8-year-old history teacher and assistant basketball coach, was new to the school, eager to make her mark. The gym, with its faded paint and creaky bleachers, had a reputation among students, whispers of shadows that moved after dark, and a cold spot near the free throw line that no one could explain. Mia, practical and no-nonsense, chalked it up to teen gossip and an old building's quirks. On April 10th, Mia stayed late after practice, locking up the gym around 9 p.m. The air was still, the only sound, the hum of flickering fluorescent lights. As she grabbed her bag, she heard a faint dribbling like a basketball bouncing on the court. She turned, but the gym was empty, the ball rack untouched. Then, from the corner of her eye, she saw a shadow, tall and shapeless, gliding across the bleachers, vanishing when she looked directly. The air turned icy, and her breath fogged, despite the Texas heat. Mia called out, thinking it was a student pranking her, but the dribbling stopped, replaced by a low whisper. Stay, play. Her keys, left on the bench, slid to the floor with no one near them. Heart racing, she grabbed her things and bolted. But as she locked the door, she swore she saw a figure in the gym's window, standing at center court, its head tilted unnaturally. The next day, Mia confided in the janitor, Carlos, a 60-year-old who'd worked at the school for decades. His face paled, and he admitted the gym had always been wrong. He told her about a 1957 fire that gutted the gym, killing a student, Tommy Grayson, a star player who'd been practicing late. The official report blamed faulty wiring, but rumors swirled of screams heard long after the flames were doused. Carlos said students in the 80 seconds saw shadows, and a coach in the 90 seconds quit after hearing his name whispered during a game. Mia dug into the school's archives. She found a 1957 yearbook with Tommy's photo smiling, holding a basketball, standing exactly where she'd seen the figure. A newspaper clipping described the fire, noting odd details. The ball rack was untouched, and a burned sneaker was found at midcourt, perfectly intact. A 2000s Reddit thread mentioned a Lockhart student seeing a shadow dribbling a ball that wasn't there always at night. The weirdness escalated. During practice, basketballs rolled off the rack, stopping in perfect lines. The scoreboard flickered, displaying 57 repeatedly, even when unplugged. Students reported feeling watched, and one player, Jake, swore he saw a shadow mimic his layup, moving faster than humanly possible. At night, Mia's classroom, near the gym, would fill with the smell of smoke, though nothing burned. Desperate, Mia contacted a local historian, Ellen Ruiz, who uncovered more. The gym was built over an older structure, a 1,920 seconds community hall where a tragic basketball game collapse killed 3 players. Ellen found a 1,957 police report. The fire's cause was never confirmed, and a witness saw a figure in the gym windows as it burned. Locals believe Tommy's spirit was trapped, tied to the court he loved. One night, Mia stayed late, determined to confront it. At 9 p.m., the dribbling started again, louder, and the shadow appeared, taller this time, its edges sharp. She spoke, asking, "Tommy, what do you want?" The lights went out, and a ball rolled to her feet, cold to the touch. A whisper echoed, "Play with us." She ran, but her phone later showed a photo she didn't take, a blurry figure dribbling, its eyes glowing. Mia requested a transfer in 2020, but the gym's strangeness persisted. Students reported shadows during games, and a 2024 janitor found a basketball with Tommy scratched into it, hidden under the bleachers. Locals called the gym the Shadow Court, and some say it's not just Tommy, other players from the past are there too. To this day, Lockhart High's gym is still in use, but coaches avoid late practices. If you're alone and hear a ball bouncing at night, don't look. Because some shadows don't just watch, they want to play. Mia wasn't just practical, she was a stickler for logic, dismissing ghost stories as small-town exaggerations, though the gym's heavy air made her uneasy from day one. The court's faded lines seemed to shift under certain lights, and the bleachers creaked even when empty. Students avoided the locker room, claiming it smelled of ash, no matter how much it was cleaned. That April night, the dribbling wasn't just a sound, it echoed in Mia's chest like a heartbeat. The shadow wasn't just shapeless, it stretched unnaturally, its edges fraying like smoke, and it moved without touching the floor. When her keys fell, they landed in a perfect circle, as if placed. The figure in the window wasn't just tilted, its head was bent at a 90-degree angle, impossible for a human neck. Carlos's stories went deeper. He'd seen the shadow himself in the 90 seconds, dribbling a ball that vanished when he approached. He found a 1,957 janitor's log noting cold spots and voices begging to play after the fire. The burned sneaker from the clipping? It was Tommy's, left at mid-court like a marker, untouched by flames that melted steel beams. Mia's research uncovered more. The 1,920 seconds collapse wasn't just a tragedy, survivors reported hearing laughter from the rubble like a game continued underground. A 1,960 seconds coach's diary described a ball bouncing on its own during a storm, stopping when he shouted Tommy's name. Ellen's findings included a 1,930 seconds photo of the community hall showing players with eyes that reflected light like animals. The disturbances grew stranger. The gym's clock froze at 9:13 p.m., the exact time of the 1,957 fire. Players felt hands brush their shoulders during drills, and Jake's basketball had scratches forming 57 after his shadow encounter. Mia's classroom lights flickered, casting shadows that mimicked dribbling motions on the walls. That final night, the shadow didn't just appear, it loomed, filling the gym with the smell of burning rubber. The ball at Mia's feet was freezing, with faint scratches spelling, "Stay." Her phone's photo showed not one figure, but 3, their forms blending into each other, eyes glowing like embers. After Mia left, the gym's reputation grew. A 2023 game was halted when the scoreboard flashed play repeatedly. A student's phone recorded a whisper during practice. You're next. The 2024 basketball with Tommy's name was still warm, like it had just been held. Lockhart's gym stands. Its lights dim. If you're coaching late and hear a bounce, don't turn around. Because some games don't end, they trap you in. Story 1. All right, folks, buckle up for a story that's strange, dark, and mysterious. This one comes from the quiet corners of a small college town in Virginia, where the line between campus legend and chilling reality blurs into something you can't quite shake. Like I always say, sometimes the truth, or at least the stories that feel too real to ignore, hits harder than any nightmare. So, if you're listening to this late at night, maybe double check your doors and windows, because today, I'm telling you the tale of the cursed dormitory of Willow Creek College. Picture this. It's the fall semester of 2022, and Willow Creek College, a modest liberal arts school tucked away in the rolling hills of rural Virginia, welcomes its latest batch of wide-eyed freshmen. The campus is idyllic on the surface, with ancient oak trees casting long shadows over brick buildings that date back to the 1882nd. But there's one spot that stands out, not for its charm, but for the way it makes your skin crawl. Hawthorne Hall. This ivy-cloaked dormitory, with its narrow hallways and creaking wooden floors, has been housing students for over a century. Yet, among the locals and alumni, it's whispered about as the Spiral Hall, a place where the past doesn't just linger, it reaches out and grabs you. Our story centers on Emma Caldwell, a 19-year-old anthropology major from a sleepy suburb in Ohio. Emma wasn't your typical freshman. She was a die-hard skeptic, the kind who'd spent her high school years running a blog called Mythbusters Anonymous, where she'd dissect urban legends, ghost stories, and conspiracy theories with cold, hard logic. Ghosts? Please? She'd scoff. It's all psychology and bad wiring. So when she got assigned to room 312 on the third floor of Hawthorne Hall, she dismissed the warnings from upperclassmen as nothing more than hazing pranks. Oh, the dorm's haunted? Sure, and the cafeteria serves gourmet meals. She'd joke with her new roommate, Sophie, a bubbly art student from California. But from the moment Emma stepped into Hawthorne, something felt off. The air inside was thicker, almost resistant, like walking through invisible cobwebs. The hallways carried a faint, antiseptic smell, reminiscent of an old hospital that no amount of air freshener could mask. And the third floor? It was always colder, even on warm September days, as if the building itself was exhaling a perpetual chill. Students avoided lingering there after dark, claiming the lights flickered without reason and shadows seemed to stretch longer than they should. Emma chalked it up to poor insulation and overactive imaginations. That is, until the night of September 15th. It was around midnight, and Emma was alone in her room, buried in textbooks for an upcoming anthropology exam on ancient symbols and rituals. Sophie was out at a frat party, leaving the dorm eerily quiet. The only sounds were the occasional creak of settling wood and the distant hum of crickets outside. Emma had her desk lamp on, casting a warm glow over her notes when she first heard it. A faint scratching noise. It started soft, like nails lightly dragging across a wooden surface, coming from inside her closet. She paused, pen in hand, and listened. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It had a rhythm, almost like a heartbeat pulsing through the walls. Rats, maybe? Emma muttered to herself, trying to stay rational. She got up, heart pounding a little harder than she'd admit, and yanked open the closet door. Inside, it was just her clothes hanging neatly, a few boxes of unpacked stuff on the floor, nothing out of the ordinary. But as she scanned the back wall with her phone's flashlight, her breath caught. Etched into the wood, faint but unmistakable, was a carving, a spiral shape swirling inward with a single eye at its center. It looked old, weathered, like it had been there for years. Emma reached out to touch it, and that's when her desk lamp flickered once, twice, plunging the room into momentary darkness. In that split second, a whisper cut through the air, clear and intimate, as if spoken right into her ear. "Emma, stay." She spun around, adrenaline surging, but the room was empty. The lamp steadied, and the scratching stopped. Shaken but determined not to freak out, Emma slammed the closet door and grabbed her phone to text Sophie. No reply party must be loud. Instead, she called her resident advisor, Lucas, a laid-back junior majoring in history. He showed up a few minutes later, rubbing sleep from his eyes, and listened to her story with a half smile. "Yeah, Hawthorne's got a rep," he admitted, shining his own flashlight into the closet. "That symbol? It's been here forever. But hey, it's just old graffiti. Don't let it mess with your head." Pressed for more, Lucas relented. He told her about Clara Vance, a student from the 1972nd who'd lived in room 312. Clara was an art major, obsessed with esoteric symbols, and one night in October 1973, she vanished without a trace. Her door was locked from the inside, her window sealed shut, no signs of forced entry or exit. All that was left was her journal, filled with frantic sketches of that same spiral eye motif. The official police report called it a runaway case, maybe stress from school. But locals? They whispered that Clara had been taken by the dorm. Some even claimed to have seen her shadow in the mirror late at night, her eyes wide and pleading. Emma, ever the investigator, couldn't let it go. The next day, she headed to the college library's archives, a dusty basement room lined with yellowed newspapers and forgotten tomes. Digging through microfilm, she found a 1973 clipping from the Willow Creek Gazette, "Student Missing from Locked Dorm Room." It detailed how Clara's roommates heard scratching from her closet the night before she disappeared, and how the air in 312 had turned icy cold. Deeper in the stacks, Emma uncovered a student zine from the 1982nd titled Campus Shadows, which recounted whispers in Hawthorne and sightings of a thin, shadowy figure lurking in the third-floor mirrors after midnight. Then, on a whim, she searched Reddit. A thread from 2010 popped up. "Anyone else hear voices in Hawthorne Hall?" is less than #0. 5# is greater than a user claiming to be a former freshman described hearing their name whispered from the closet at exactly 1 a.m., always accompanied by that pulsing scratch. As the days turned into weeks, the weirdness escalated. One morning, Sophie woke up screaming her art books, usually stacked haphazardly, were arranged on the floor in a perfect spiral, pages open to illustrations of ancient occult symbols. The girls hadn't touched them. That same week, the hallway lights on the third floor began dimming precisely at 1 a.m., casting the corridor in an unnatural gloom. Students reported hearing footsteps pacing outside their doors, slow, deliberate steps that always paused at room 312 before retreating. Emma's phone started glitching too. Apps would crash, and once, while recording a voice memo for class, it captured an unauthorized audio clip. A raspy voice murmuring, "Don't leave us." She played it back, chills racing down her spine. It wasn't her voice, or Sophie's. Then came the mirror incident. One foggy night after a shower, Emma wiped the steam from the bathroom mirror and froze. There, in the center, was a handprint too small to be hers, with elongated fingers that didn't look quite right. She touched it, and it vanished like smoke, leaving no trace. Sophie saw it too, her face paling. "Emma, this isn't funny. We need to get out of here." Desperate for answers, Emma reached out to Dr. Margaret Holt, a local historian and retired professor who'd written books on Virginia's forgotten past. They met at a cozy coffee shop off campus, where Margaret, with her wire-rimmed glasses and stack of yellowed documents, laid out Hawthorne's true history. The dorm wasn't just old, it was built in 1895 on the ruins of the Willow Creek Asylum, a 19th century institution for the mentally afflicted. In 1882, a patient named Eliza Morrow was confined to solitary in what would become the foundation of Room 312. Eliza, a young woman accused of witchcraft by superstitious townsfolk, ranted about watchers in the walls and a door in the dark that watches back. She carved spirals into her cell walls before disappearing one night. Door locked, no escape possible. Asylum records, which Margaret had unearthed from state archives, described Eliza's carvings as eyes that follow you, unblinking. But it got darker. A 1,920 seconds groundskeeper's log, hidden in the college's special collections, noted similar symbols etched into Hawthorne's basement during construction. Workers covered them up, dismissing them as vandalism, but one entry read, "The marks bleed when touched red like blood, then gone." Margaret leaned in, her voice dropping. "Emma, whatever's in that dorm, it's not a ghost. It's something older, tied to the land. And it doesn't let go." By late October, Emma was barely sleeping. The scratching had become a nightly ritual, growing louder, more insistent. Her dreams were plagued by visions of a woman in a tattered white gown, Eliza, perhaps, pointing to a swirling void. Sophie moved out temporarily, crashing with friends, leaving Emma alone. Determined to confront it, she set up her phone to record and waited that fateful night. At exactly 1 a.m., the scratching erupted not from the closet, but from all around, like the walls themselves were alive. The closet door creaked open on its own, revealing not darkness, but a faint, ethereal glow pulsing from within. Emma approached, heart-hammering, and peered inside. There, in the glow, stood a shadow humanoid, but unnaturally thin, its limbs elongated like twisted branches. Its eyes weren't eyes, they were glowing coals, pulsing with an inner light that seemed to draw her in. The air turned electric, smelling of ozone, and Emma's necklace, a silver cross from her mother, heated up against her skin before snapping off and clattering to the floor. Trembling, she whispered, "Clara, is that you?" The response came not as a whisper, but a guttural echo reverberating in her chest. "Not Clara. Stay with us." Her phone captured it all, a blurry figure reaching out with those spindly fingers, the spiral carving on the wall twisting like a living thing before the screen went black, the battery drained in seconds. Emma fled the room, pounding on Lucas's door until he let her in. The next day, she requested a transfer to another dorm across campus. But the nightmare didn't end there. In her new room, the disturbances followed like a shadow. Mirrors fogged with the same eerie handprint. Lights flickered at 1 a.m. And in her dreams, the woman in the gown now whispered names, not just Clara's, but others, Eliza, and a dozen more from asylum records Margaret had shared. Word spread on campus. By spring 2023, a maintenance worker inspecting Hawthorne found a hidden panel in 312's closet. Behind it? A cache of small bones, possibly human, etched with tiny spirals. Forensics couldn't date them precisely, but rumors flew, remnants from the asylum or worse, from those taken. Fast forward to 2024. A new freshman in 312 reported scratches appearing overnight in the closet wood, spelling out EMMA in jagged letters. TikToks went viral. One showed a shadow in the mirror, mouthing silently, its head cocked at an inhuman angle. By 2025, the college quietly renovated Hawthorne, but students still whisper about the whispers. Locals call it a portal, a thin veil between worlds, anchored by Eliza's curse. Others say it's a collective hallucination, fed by generations of fear. Emma? She graduated early, moved far away, but she still blogs now about the unexplained she couldn't debunk. If you're at Willow Creek and hear scratching at 1 a.m., don't open the closet. Don't look in the mirror. And whatever you do, don't stay. Because some places don't just house you, they claim you forever. And that's the strange, dark, and mysterious story of the cursed dormitory of Willow Creek College. If you've got your own eerie tale, drop it in the comments. But remember, sometimes the shadows listen back. Story 2. All right, folks, buckle up, because this one's going to crawl under your skin and stay there. We're heading to a forgotten corner of Kentucky, to a house that doesn't just sit on its land, it digests it. Locals call it the Old Grayson Manor, but the name on the rusted gate is only half the story. The other half is whispered in the creak of every floorboard, a sound that never quite stops, even when no one's walking. So pull your chair closer to the fire, but maybe keep one foot on the floor just to be sure it's still your floor. Because tonight, I'm telling you what really happened to Olivia Reed inside the house that eats people. Spring 2024, Ashwood, Kentucky, population 412, give or take the ones who vanished. The town clings to the edge of the Daniel Boone National Forest like a scab that won't heal. And at the end of a gravel road that hasn't been graded since the Carter administration sits the Old Grayson Manor. Built in 1852 by Jeremiah Grayson, a cotton baron who made his fortune on the backs of enslaved people and lost his mind chasing something older than money. The house is 3 stories of sagging brick, widow's walks, and porches that lean like trunks. Vines don't just grow up the walls, they burrow into the mortar, thick as pythons. Windows are shattered teeth in a screaming mouth. And the front door? It's swollen shut, warped by decades of humidity or something pushing from the inside. Olivia Reed rolled into town on April 9th in a dented Subaru with paranormal proof stenciled on the back window. 30 years old, ponytail, steel-toed boots, and a skepticism that had cracked in 100 haunted basements but never quite shattered. She'd built a modest TikTok following nothing crazy, 80K followers posting EVPs and thermal hits from abandoned asylums and Civil War battlefields. But this trip wasn't for content. A week earlier, a grainy 15-second clip had blown up. Night vision of the manor's foyer, floorboards flexing like lungs, and a child's voice whispering, "Come play," from the wood grain itself. The poster's account vanished 12 hours later. Olivia smelled a hoax, but she also smelled a story. She checked into the Ashwood Motor Lodge, a cinder block relic with a neon vacancy sign that flickered like a dying heartbeat. The clerk, a woman named Darlene with a smoker's rasp, slid the key across the counter and didn't blink when Olivia asked about the manor. "Floorboards talk," Darlene said, tapping ash into a Folgers can. "Always have. My grandma lost a cousin in there in '52. Found her shoes on the porch, nothing else." Olivia laughed it off, but the laugh didn't reach her eyes. April 10th, 11:47 p.m. Olivia parked a quarter-mile away and hiked in with a Pelican case full of gear, full-spectrum cam, REM pod, spirit box, and a digital recorder that could pick up a gnat's fart at 50 yards. The forest was wrong. No cricket chirps, no frog croaks, just the wet rustle of leaves that sounded too much like breathing. She reached the manor and wedged a crowbar into the front door. The wood resisted, then gave with a sigh that smelled of iron and wet earth. Inside, moonlight speared through broken windows, painting the foyer in silver slashes. Dust hung in the air like fog, undisturbed for decades. And the floorboards, they were warm. She set up in the grand foyer, beneath a chandelier that dangled by one chain, crystals ticking like wind chimes in a morgue. REM pod on the stairs, camera on a tripod aimed at the hallway, recorder rolling. Midnight came and went, nothing. Just the house settling, or so she told herself. Then, at 12:03, the first creak. Not a footstep, more like a groan, deep in the wood, traveling the length of the foyer and stopping directly under her boots. The REM pod screamed red. The recorder caught it. A voice, dry as bone dust, saying, "Oh, live, I-A," in 3 distinct syllables, like it was tasting her name. She froze. The temperature plummeted, her phone's thermometer app dropped from 68 to 41 inches 6 seconds. Her breath plumed. And the camera? Oh, the camera. The live feed showed the upstairs hallway, even though the lens was pointed at the downstairs banister. A figure stood at the far end, tall, gaunt, arms too long, dragging its knuckles across the floorboards. Where its eyes should have been were just smooth stretches of skin, but it tilted its head like it saw her anyway. Then it smiled, and the smile kept going, splitting past the cheeks, past the ears, until the bottom half of its face was just teeth and shadow. Olivia bolted upright, heart jackhammering. The figure vanished, but the creaking didn't. It followed her, step for step, as she climbed the stairs. Each tread bowed under her weight like flesh, warm and pulsing. At the top, the hallway stretched longer than the house's footprint, walls breathing in and out. Scratches marred the plaster, fresh and glistening. Staywithus, the letters oozing a black sap that smelled of pennies and rot. She swung her flashlight into the master bedroom. A floor-to-ceiling mirror, spiderwebbed with cracks, reflected not her but a crowd. Dozens of faces pressed against the glass from the inside, mouths moving in perfect sync. Olivia, Olivia, Olivia! Their eyes were milk-white, pupils blown, and their hands left bloody prints that slid down the mirror like tears. She screamed, stumbled back, and the mirror shattered outward, shards hovering mid-air for a heartbeat before clattering to the floor. Where they landed, the wood absorbed them, drinking the glass like water. She ran, down the stairs, through the foyer, out the door, not stopping until she reached her car. The engine turned over on the third try, and she peeled out, gravel spitting like buckshot. In the rear view, the manor's windows glowed faintly red, pulsing in time with her heartbeat. Next morning, she met her cameraman, Ben Skeptic Callahan, at the Ashwood Diner. Ben was 6'4", built like a linebacker, and believed in exactly three things: lens flares, pareidolia, and black coffee. Olivia shoved her phone across the table, footage already queued. Ben watched, face unreadable. When the mirror scene hit, he paused it, zoomed in on a single frame. In the reflection, behind the crowd of faces, stood times Olivia herself, asterisk, but wrong eyeless, grinning, one hand raised in a wave. "Deep fake," Ben muttered, but his voice cracked. The waitress, Mabel, refilled their cups without asking. 72 years old, hair like steel wool, eyes that had seen too much. "Grayson's?" she said. Not a question. Whole family went missing in 78, October 31st. House was locked from the inside, chain on the door, windows nailed shut. Sheriff kicked it in 3 days later. Furniture right where it should be. Plates on the table, food still warm. But the floorboards. She trailed off, tracing a circle on the table with a gnarled finger. Carved up like a butcher's block. Spirals and eyes, and the smell, Lord, the smell. Like a slaughterhouse in July. Olivia's research spiral began that afternoon. Ashwood Library, microfiche room, air thick with mildew and despair. 1,878 newspaper. Grayson family vanished, foul play suspected. No bodies, no blood, just an empty house and a diary found in Jeremiah's study. Entry dated October 30th. The voices are louder now. They know my name. They want the children. I have given them blood, but it is not enough. The wood hungers. Another entry, ink smudged with what looked like tears. The floorboards sing when I sleep. They promise eternity. I am so tired. 1,923 police report. A drifter named Silas Crow squatted in the manor for 3 nights. Found babbling in the town square, fingernails torn off, claiming the house ate his shadow. Committed to an asylum in Louisville. Hanged himself with his bedsheet a week later. Sheet was clean, no ligature marks on his neck. 1,987, a teenage couple broke in on a dare. Girl made it out, boy didn't. Searchers found his Polaroid camera in the cellar. Last photo, the boy's own face, but the eyes were scratched out with something sharp. The girl? She still lives in Ashwood. Won't speak, but every October 31st, she stands at the edge of the forest and screams at the manor until her voice gives out. Olivia needed more. She tracked down Dr. Evelyn Hart, retired history professor, last person to access the manor's sealed county records. Hart's house smelled of lavender and old paper. She poured tea with shaking hands. Jeremiah Grayson wasn't just a planter, she said. He was a student of the old ways, traveled to Haiti, Jamaica, the Carolina Lowcountry, collected grimoires bound in human skin. The manor's foundation? Built atop a pre-Columbian ritual site. The surveyors in 1851 found bones, hundreds arranged in spirals. Grayson paid them to shut up and pour the concrete anyway. Hart slid a photocopy across the table. A letter from Jeremiah's wife, Eliza, dated September 1878. He speaks to the wood now, cuts himself, and lets it drink. The children hear lullabies from the floor. I fear we are not alone in our skins. On the back, in different ink, the binding is complete. We are the house now. April 15th. Olivia and Ben returned at dusk, armed with better gear and worse nerves. They set up in the cellar, this time a cavernous space with stone walls, sweating moisture, and a dirt floor that shifted when you weren't looking directly at it. The wooden staircase down was the only wood in the room, and it creaked constantly, like something pacing above. At 1:17 a.m., the spirit box erupted in static, then a child's voice, "Daddy's home." The REM pod went berserk. Ben's thermal camera caught a heat bloom in the center of the room, human-shaped, but the core temperature read 212 degrees Fahrenheit, boiling. Then the floorboards above them bowed downward, sagging like a trampoline. Dust rained. The creaking became a chorus, dozens of voices layered, men, women, children, all saying the same word in different languages. Stay, rest, bleed, queda. Olivia's recorder picked up a new sound. Wet smacking, like lips on meat. Ben swung his flashlight up. The underside of the floorboards was moving. Faces pushed through the wood, mouths open, tongues lolling, eyes rolling white. One reached down, fingers elongating, and brushed Ben's hair. He screamed a sound Olivia had never heard from him and bolted up the stairs. Olivia followed, but her boot stuck. The wood had closed around her ankle like a mouth. She yanked free, leaving her boot behind, and felt warm liquid on her sock blood, but not hers. The cellar door slammed shut above her. Darkness swallowed everything except the red glow seeping between the floorboards. She pounded on the door, screaming for Ben. No answer. Just the wet smacking, closer now. She found the spare flashlight in her pack, clicked it on. The beam caught the far wall. A mural carved into the stone, spirals within spirals, and at the center a tree made of human arms, fingers twitching. The floorboards above creaked in a rhythm, left, right, coming down the stairs. She ran to the opposite side of the cellar, found a rusted coal chute, and clawed her way out into the night. Ben was gone. His truck was still in the driveway, driver's door open, keys in the ignition. Olivia called 911. Deputies arrived at dawn, searched the house, found nothing. No Ben, no boot, no blood. Just fresh scratches on the cellar door. BENISHOME. Olivia left Ashwood that day, but the manor didn't leave her. Back in her Louisville apartment, the hardwood floors started creaking at 2-3 a.m. every night. Not randomly, patterns. Morse code, she realized after the third week. The message was always the same, OLIVIACOMEHOME. Her mirrors fogged with breath that wasn't hers. Her reflection lagged half a second behind. She stopped sleeping, started hearing the wet smacking under her bed. May 2024, a new TikTok account posted from her phone, though she hadn't touched it in days. The video was 47 minutes long, live-streamed from inside the manor's master bedroom. It showed Olivia, barefoot, eyes rolled white, carving spirals into the floorboards with a kitchen knife. Is less than hashon. 2 hash is greater than. She was smiling. The chat exploded. Fake. CGI. She's trolling. At the 46-minute mark, she looked up at the camera and said, in a voice that was hers, but layered with dozens of others, "The wood is thirsty." Then she pressed the blade to her throat and dragged it across. The feed cut to black. When police kicked in her apartment door an hour later, they found her asleep on the couch, unharmed, knife in the sink. The video was gone from her phone. But the floorboards in her living room? Fresh spirals, still wet. June 2024. Searchers found Ben's GoPro in the manor's attic. The memory card held one file, 12 minutes of footage. It started with Ben running up the cellar stairs, screaming Olivia's name. The camera jostled, then steadied on the foyer. The front door was open, moonlight spilling in. Ben whispered, "Thank God," and stepped outside. But the footage didn't show the porch. It showed the cellar again. Same angle, same dust motes in the air. Ben spun around, confused. The door behind him was gone, just stone wall. The creaking started above him. He looked up, and the lens caught it. The ceiling lowering, floorboards descending like a press. Ben's last words, "It's inside the wood. It's in the..." The feed cut as the wood touched the camera lens, smearing it with something red. 2025. The manor still stands. The county condemned it, but the demolition crew quit after the first day. Their foreman reported the wrecking ball bouncing off the foundation like hitting rubber. One worker swore he saw faces in the brick, mouthing more. Drones sent in for survey footage show the interior changing hallways, lengthening, stairs spiraling into nowhere. And every night at 2-3 a.m., the local police scanner crackles with a child's voice. "Come play." Callers traced to the manor's landline, disconnected since 1978. Olivia hasn't been seen since May. Her apartment's been rented to a new tenant, a young couple. They lasted 3 weeks, left a note for the landlord. "The floors won't stop talking. They know our PIN numbers." The new tenants? They're influencers, planning a 24-hour challenge. Their last post, 3 hours ago, a photo of the foyer, caption, "Who's ready to hear the house sing?" The top comment, from an account with no profile pic. "Don't step on the wood. It remembers." So here's the thing. The old Grayson Manor isn't haunted by ghosts. It's a mouth. The floorboards are teeth. The walls are a throat. And it's still hungry. If you're ever in Ashwood and you hear creaking at 2-3 a.m., don't check the floor. Don't look in the mirror. And whatever you do, don't answer when it says your name. Because some houses don't let you leave. They let you in, and then they close the door from the inside. Story 3. All right, folks, buckle up for a story that's strange, dark, and mysterious. This one comes straight out of the heartland, from a place where the rails run deep and the nights get colder than they have any right to. Like I always say, sometimes the truth, or at least the stories that refuse to stay buried, hits harder than any fiction. So if you're listening to this on a late-night drive, maybe keep the windows rolled up. Because today, I'm telling you the tale of the ghost train at Union Station. Picture this. It's the dead of winter, December 2020, in Kansas City, Missouri. Union Station looms like a cathedral of steel and stone, a Beaux-Arts masterpiece built back in 1914, its 95-foot clock tower stabbing into the night sky. By day, it's a bustling hub, Amtrak trains pulling in, tourists snapping photos under the massive chandeliers, kids chasing each other across the marble floors. But after the last train departs and the visitors trickle out, the place transforms. The echoes stretch longer. The shadows pool thicker, and the air carries a faint, unmistakable smell, like coal smoke and wet iron, even though the last steam engine left these tracks decades ago. Our story centers on Jake Harper, a 32-year-old night janitor who'd been mopping these floors for 2 solid years. Jake was the kind of guy who trusted what he could see, touch, and smell. He'd grown up in a small town outside Wichita, fixed tractors for his dad, and could rebuild a carburetor blindfolded. Ghosts? Urban legends? Load of crap, he'd grunt whenever his coworkers swapped stories in the break room. Old buildings creak. End of discussion. But even Jake couldn't ignore the way Union Station felt after midnight, like it was holding its breath, waiting for something. Platform 3 was the worst. It sat at the far eastern end of the station, tucked beneath a cracked skylight that hadn't been repaired since the 72nds. Cleaners avoided it if they could. Passengers waiting for the late California Zephyr always complained of a heaviness in the air, like someone standing just behind them. The brass lamps along the platform flickered, only there no other track had that problem. And no matter how many times Jake scrubbed, the faint scent of coal smoke clung to the concrete like a stain. December 8th started like any other shift. Jake clocked in at 11 p.m., grabbed his cart, mop, bleach, radio, clipped to his belt, and started his rounds. By 12:45, the station was a tomb. The last Amtrak had pulled out at 11:57, bound for Chicago. The ticket counters were dark. Even the security guards were holed up in the control room, feet on the desk, sipping burnt coffee. Jake was alone on Platform 3, sweeping gum wrappers into a dustpan when the floor beneath him vibrated. Not a tremor like a subway rumble, but deeper, older. He froze, broom handle in mid-swing. The schedule board above him was blank, no arrivals until 5:30 a.m. Yet the vibration grew, rattling the metal benches, sending a cascade of dust from the ceiling beams. Then came the whistle.